Namaskar. Welcome to this webinar, this online course, New Humanism. This is the second class. So let's go to the presentation. Last week we saw the basic concepts, and those were the geosentiment, that sentiment that is related to a geographical area. It means our attraction, our love goes or flows in the direction of a limited geographical area. And we do everything for that area, or we direct all our sentiment to that area and exclude other areas. The second sentiment we saw was the social sentiment. And in this social sentiment, our love is not for a geographical area, but for a group of people. And we also saw that this social sentiment can expand and expand, and it becomes maximum expansion humanism. But still it excludes other beings. And we saw that neo-humanism is the sentiment that includes everything. But the origin of neo-humanism is different from the origin of the other sentiments, while all the other sentiments are originated by some feeling of selfishness, means for my group, or for all humans, or for the people living in my area. Neo-humanism is born out of the feeling that everything is an expression of consciousness, of the same consciousness, and we are all related, and we are all moving towards a common goal, and we are moving together. We had a homework last time, and let's check it now, in the sense that many of you have sent me articles, and I put most of the articles in the presentation. I hope I didn't miss anything. So the first article is here, is about Oklahoma teachers not too pleased about the bill to ban AP history, means the study of US history, because they say it's not patriotic enough. And so who can talk about this? Are you present? And if you raise your hand, I think it's not present. Okay, let's go to the next one. Then I can come back also. The next one was this one about a Seattle dog figures out buses and starts riding solo to the park. I think this one is from Tuarita. Tuarita, would you like to talk about this one? I'm not sure if your mic. Yeah, I think your microphone
Can you hear
should be
me?
working. Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes, it's a bit low,
I
but we
chose
can
this one.
hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Maybe I need to put it up.
a little bit up.
Let me see. I think the volume's all the way up.
Okay, you go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Um, I chose this article because, first of all, I have such a sentiment for the animals. And when I saw this one, it just touched something inside of me, realizing that people have come to accept, the other creatures as being uh, part of part of our life. And it seemed to me it sort of showed some sort of expansion of the mind, and that they allowed the dog to come onto the bus, that the dog actually, people were friendly towards him. The bus driver accepted this, this animal to come on. And um, also, the transportation, if I'm not mistaken, the transportation company said that it was fine for the dog to come on. And as a matter of fact, they made a joke and they said something like, well, perhaps the owner, how did it go? Perhaps the dog would be safer if the owner was on a leash. Anyway, this dog was, as I said, it just touched me so, and it made me feel as though people were opening up and becoming more expanded in their mind, uh, accepting animals as being part of our life, and that to me depicted something, very much towards neo-humanism. I know
Okay.
I just, one more thing if you don't mind. Baba was
No.
always so, I think it was back in the 80s, he was collecting plants and he had place for the animals, to go. And, people were acharyas were bringing in different animals, and he sort of set up a sanctuary and a plant, botanical gardens. And he so emphasized that. And so, it just seemed important to me and also very sweet. And thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So the next one is this one. It's about Mecca. More than 2 million worshippers arrive in Mecca for Hajj pilgrimage. This one is Mariella. She's not here, but she sent me the text. She says like this. Okay, I don't have a microphone, so I'll explain here. I chose the article because religious pilgrimages are of utmost significance to Muslims and represent the pinnacle of devotion to those prescribing to Islam. It's an example of geosentiment because people attribute a holiness to this area. Thousands of people gathered around the Kaaba is a really powerful image. This amount of people in one place with a similar intent raises the energy of a particular location, as is seen with religious demonstrations in other religions, and literally represents people marching together towards a spiritual goal, as you said in the video. Whereas I think you can make the case that this type of event, Hajj, can help others move towards a spiritual goal, like is consistent with principles in New Humanism. I think it's still constrained in that they are following an ideology and are therefore limited by this. Even though they are moving towards their spiritual goal, they are still more controlled by the dogma of their religion, which prevents this from being spiritual and impeds universalism. I think that during this eon in human development, religions serve as a precursor to universalism and real spiritual awakening. So the Hajj is a good example of the egg trying to break its shell, so to speak. Of course, there is a lot more to elaborate here. All right, so okay, so this much about this. Now the next one is this one, and I think this one was from Alex. Alex, you want to elaborate on this one? Yes, okay.
Yes. How are you? So what I tried to focus on was something that would be what I thought this was more humanist. In other words, it was all focused on using the natural resources that were out there for personal consumption. So like toothpaste. So the toothpaste is destroying the rainforest. The and then, you know, down below it talks about, I think, one of the companies who's basically trying to make sure that it doesn't do it, but the whole article was pretty much based on human consumption of the natural resources. That's why I thought it was on a humanist level.
Okay. And you have another one also, this one about the whales. 140 whales die after getting stranded on a New Zealand beach.
So this one, basically what I did was I tried to find an article that went beyond it, and for a neo-humanist perspective, because of all the article is focused on the volunteers who tried to help the whales, to get back to the ocean and get back to the freedom. So this was, to me, an example of more of a neo-humanist going beyond the humanism. The other thing, just with the previous article, the only angle I thought that might be considered, in a sense, neo-humanist was the author who wrote the article about it to bring it to the attention, and that would itself would, I think, if I'm not mistaken, be a neo-humanist attitude.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alex. Okay, let me move ahead here. Okay, another one. Obama vetoes the Keystone Pipe Bill. This was by Deepa, but she said that she doesn't have a mic. So let me see what she said. Okay, so basically this article, Obama vetoed the bill Tuesday for the pipeline. And she says, this issue, I think, is geo-economic with a political undertone. Those supporting the pipeline are thinking about their political future. Those against it are thinking in terms of the effect it will have on groundwater and the environment. Okay, so this was about this article. And she sent a second one. No federal civil rights charges in death of Trayvon Martin. Okay, so this is very much in the news that the Justice Department said Tuesday its independent investigation found insufficient evidence to charge George Zimmerman with civil rights violations in the shooting death of Florida teen Trayvon Martin. And so she says, this is an example of social sentiment stemming from a deep contempt towards Black people that's so pervasive in the US. Okay, so these were some things in the news. And basically, the symptoms of lack of new humanism are widespread geo-sentiment, social sentiment, and humanist sentiment. So these are the symptoms that there is a lack of new humanism. I had taken from the news some time ago. One point was the UK joins US in warning to Syria. Now we have different nations, and these nations are in conflict, each one seeing their interest, and then they come into conflict. The same thing here, Germany and France in Greek talks. So basically was an economic thing. Germany and France are supposed to bail out Greece. And then Japanese land on disputed island. Again, two nations fighting for one location. It is ours. No, it is ours. And that creates conflict. We saw that geo-sentiment and social sentiment can branch into geopolitical, geo-economic, geo-religious, and so forth. The same way social sentiment can be also social-political, socio-economic, social-religious. And the maximum of the social sentiment is when it embraces all humans, which is still has its limitations. Now we have to go beyond the humanism. We have to go beyond humanism towards neo-humanism. How to get established in neo-humanism? To expand the mind, here a few steps. So the first step is study. By studying, mind expands, more knowledge. Eventually, we overcome geosentiment. Then, rationality. With rationality, we can also expand the mind and we can move towards overcoming social sentiment. But there is another thing that has to be added to rationality, because rationality alone cannot help so much, because people can justify things. So we have to think in the terms that, is that for the welfare of all? If it's for the welfare of all, then it's towards new humanism. If it's not for the welfare of all, if it's for the welfare of a group, be it even the welfare of humans in, let's say, that being detrimental to non-humans or to a group of humans and detrimental to other group of humans. So we have to think, is that for the welfare of all? Welfare of the universe means welfare of all beings, welfare of the planet, welfare of the fauna, flora, humans. So that question has to be there so that the rationality works well. In the world, there is a lot of exploitation, and the exploitation can be socio-economic. It can also be psycho-economic. It means, for example, nowadays people accept that there are rich people and there are poor people. It's kind of accepted. And the economic system that we live in says that, yes, some people will be rich, some people will be poor. Those who are more capable work more, they will be rich, and the others will be poor. So that's a kind of a psychoeconomic exploitation. Because if we were thinking for the welfare of all, that would not be accepted. Just let's see in a small scale. We have a reunion and we are, let's say, 20 people. And then we have a party and we have a cake. And there I come there first, and then I take 90% of the cake and I leave 10% for the rest of the people. Now when all the people arrive and they see there is only remain a little small piece of the cake, everybody will question, why did you take most of the cake? And there is no explanation. Now, why did you take most of the cake? You don't need all that cake. You cannot eat it. You have indigestion. And there is not cake for the rest of the people. So that will be like the normal thinking. But here, with a psychoeconomic exploitation, people are prepared to accept that somebody takes 90% of the cake and everybody else is dividing the rest of the cake. So this is a kind of a dogma. It's not based on rationality. It's not based on the idea. Is this for the welfare of all? Therefore, to remove exploitation in the socio-economic sphere, we need Prout. It's a socio-economic theory. But to remove it in the psycho-economic sphere, which is in the intellectual sphere, then we need a new humanism. So we need two approaches here. One, to remove the socio-economic exploitation. Second, to remove psycho-economic exploitation. Both are necessary. The course is about new humanism. In the future, we'll have one about Prout. So getting an article here from a newspaper, that's in February 19th, so some time ago, not long ago. But we can see here that first there is disputed waters. China flexes muscle with fortress in disputed water. They are disputing a geographical location. Here, borrowers flock to subprime loans. This is an economic thing. Here is talking about rate hike. That's another economic thing. Here is Jeb Bush about his presidential election. This is Ukraine, problem in Ukraine. They are also fighting who controls a certain territory. We just open the newspaper and we see complete lack of new humanism and a lot of socio-economic and psycho-economic situations. So Prout is the way or the path to socio-economic liberation, emancipation. And new humanism is the psychic approach, it's the approach to intellectual liberation, liberation of the mind, a psychic liberation. And that's very important, that the mind becomes free, then it can think properly, then it can analyze situations properly. Now we need basically three things. We need the socio-economic approach. We need the psycho-intellectual approach. And we need the spiritual, intuitional approach. We need all of them. We have seen that there are many people in the politics which are dominated by the various sentiments, geo-sentiments, social sentiments, sometimes maximum if they reach to humanism. But there are some people from these politicians that they were idealistic people. Maybe they had their sentiment when they began, maybe was more expanded, but slowly as they enter into the political scene, they become limited by the pressure and ideas that are dominating that economic or political arena. So the spiritual base is very important, because without the spiritual base, our sense of morality can always fall. Because, let's say, if we start a little bit thinking in a selfish way, then downfall comes. And then we also join what everybody is doing. So this spiritual base is very important to avoid that one will fall into the trap of these sentiments, and most the trap of selfishness. Okay, have a question here for you. Let me see if I can find it here just a moment. It's a simple question. Okay, 33% have voted. I'm expecting a few more. Okay, 50%. Okay, I think we're okay here. I will share the results with you. And basically everybody thinks, okay, the question, it was more like just to involve you in these things. So the question was, what is the most important to create a better society? Is it proud? Is it new humanism? Is it spirituality? And is it all of the three? Without any of these, it's not possible. So my idea was just to kind of emphasize it, that if the economy there is problem, we cannot do much. If in the mind of the people, means their intellect is not free, then it's very difficult to change, because it's the people themselves are holding it. I remember I went to Romania in 1988, and that was when the dictator Ceausescu was in power. And I visited the country. It was interesting and at the same time was hard. And I saw that everywhere they have like the photo of the dictator in every shop, his book, and it's like everybody supporting him. And even when I was leaving the country, there was a demonstration for him, everybody with his photo, holding big photos, walking on the street and like that. At that moment, I thought, wow, this will never change. But then, about a year later, everything changed. He was thrown out, everything is new. So, what happened actually? I was thinking about it and I thought that people were kind of accepting it. So mentally they were accepting it. At a certain point, they didn't accept anymore. Then they just revolted, and that was kind of a collective thing. Means it was as if the collective mind of those people became one, and we are not accepting this anymore, and the whole thing changed. So it was happening in the mental sphere, and then it expressed in the physical sphere. So new humanism, what does it do? So that idea of new humanism liberates from any feelings of inferiority or superiority and remove mental defects. So thinking defects, defects in ideas. And it gives awareness that everyone is important. I am important. Animals are important. Plants are important. Even inanimate beings are important. Rocks are important. Mountains are important. Everything is important. some things we will face in this, let's say, expression or trying to bring about new humanism. One thing is called pseudo-humanistic strategy. What is that? It's people posing as humanists, means we are doing this for the welfare of all, but in fact, they are doing it for their selfish and group interest. Their publicity or their PR, their marketing is, we are for the good of all. But the reality is much different. Now, like, for example, rich people will think, no, I'm working hard so that I can give many jobs. Is that really true? No. That's the kind of pseudo-humanistic strategy. There are people who create distortions. It means that they present things as if it is something when it is really something else. It means they are thinking something and they are saying something different. And even they will do something different. These people who create distortions, there are two types. One type, they do it unconsciously. They don't really know that they are creating problem to others, that what they are doing is not right. Then at a certain point, they come to know it. So they accept it. Oh yes, I was doing wrong, now I'm changing. But some people, they don't change. They don't accept it. Because they were propagating some idea, and then they find out that that idea is not good, but they put everything on that. So to maintain their prestige, they don't change. They continue. Other kind of people, they do it deliberately. They know what they are doing and they are planning it and they are doing it. Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar calls these people human chameleons, and they change color. They elude the people. And they use what is called a metamorphosed sentimental strategy. How is this strategy? At a certain point, they will use geosentiment. They may use, for example, patriotism. Oh, everything for our homeland and this and that. If that idea doesn't catch, or if it loses a little bit the power, then they may choose some social sentiment. And let's say, oh, everything for, oh, we are from this country, and these other people are foreigner. Okay, so now they are trying to get the support in that way. And if that idea becomes obsolete, that people now start having the feeling for foreigners, no, then they change and they still take another social sentiment. So every time they are changing the sentiment that they are using so that they can keep their position, prestige, money, power. This will be homework for you. So you should think, if you know examples of situations or people who used this kind of metamorphosed sentimental strategy. Think about it for the next one. Okay. So how to get established in New Humanism? One thing is very important, and that's spirituality. Spirituality is the base to get established in New Humanism. And spirituality comes in different degrees. And these are spirituality as a cult or practice, in essence, and as a mission. The first one is spirituality as a cult. Prabhataranjan Sarkar calls it cult, meaning practice, something that you do, something that you cultivate. That is a cult, something you cultivate. The word cult nowadays has different meanings, but here it is presented as something you do, something you practice. This practice starts on the physical level towards the psychic level, towards the spiritual level. In the practice of yoga, you have asanas, you have different mental practices, meditation towards the spiritual. Meditation is psycho-spiritual. Asanas is physical-psycho. So it's a complete process to bring spirituality. And this process is to remove the defects of the psychic world, the limitations, the wrong ideas. So by expansion, it removes limited ideas. If one is doing spiritual practice, one will be able to render greater service and will move towards spiritual world. When you are doing spiritual practice, it means you are embracing everything. Then you can do real service. Then you will not do a selfish service, but you do real selfless service. So that's spirituality as a cult, is the practice. The process, a physical, psycho-spiritual process. The next one is spirituality in essence. Now this is a little bit different here. What happens is that spiritual approach creates a change in the collective mind. As I was mentioning in the case of Romania, there was a change in the collective mind, and that's why there was a change in the society. Now that change was more in the economic, political sphere, and that change was not really that people were doing spiritual practice. They were not really doing the spiritual practice, but that their mind changed and they didn't accept anymore that kind of socioeconomic and psychoeconomic exploitation. But then what happened? The moment communism came out, what came in was capitalism. And communism, the exploitation was more kind of in the physical level, means you were not allowed to do this, there was so much repression. But in capitalism, this repression is not so much in the physical level, is more in the psychic level. The spirituality in essence will also remove those barriers in the psychic level. So that will avoid that psychoeconomic exploitation also. So this spirituality in essence is happening in the collective mind, and a new thought wave is created. By creating a new thought wave in this collective mind, there is a change. And that's the effect, the practical effect of spirituality. So that's spirituality in essence. Second phase, let's say first phase, as a practice, as a cult. People are practicing. And then comes a point that has an effect in the collective mind. So now there is a change in the society. It expresses in the society. And the last phase is spirituality as a mission. Here, the individual existential nucleus means the individual I feeling will coincide with the cosmic existential nucleus, means cosmic I. So the drop will merge with the ocean. The unit I merges in the cosmic I. That's spirituality as a mission. And that's the highest expression of new humanism. Because here, if one connects in that level, then one feels oneness with everything. There is no differentiation, there is no classification that this is superior, that is inferior, because everything is one. And this benefits all worlds, plant, animal, human, and also inanimate. Everything gets benefited if one reaches to that level of spirituality. And only in this level, there will be no more geo-sentiment, no more social sentiment, no more humanist sentiment. And the exploitation will be impossible. There will be no exploitation. So as you see, spirituality is very important for the establishment of new humanism. Like the sentiment of new humanism, the base of it is spirituality. So there is not selfishness, it's based on oneness. Okay, so this is the presentation for today. Just a summary here. The geosentiment, social sentiment, humanism, all these have the factor of selfishness. Only new humanism goes beyond this selfishness because it's based on a spiritual idea. And new humanism, to establish new humanism, we have also to think about the socio-economic level and the spiritual level. New humanism cannot be established just by itself. We can understand, suppose we think, yes, geosentiment is limited. Okay, yes, social sentiment is limited. Oh yes, humanism is limited. But when we are under pressure, we kind of resort to one of those sentiments. And the pressure is created because the society is not balanced. Maybe there is economic pressure. Suppose I'm losing my job and I start thinking, oh, I'm losing my job because those people are coming here, they are taking my job. Now, some social sentiment may creep in, or some geo-sentiment may creep in. So because of economic, so that's why we need socio-economic liberation. Then we need psycho-economic liberation. And we need the spiritual liberation, because without spiritual liberation, all the others can fall. Okay, that was about the presentation. Now you can ask questions. I did have one more question. Let me see. No, I think I had only this question. Oh, no, I did have one question here. It's also a simple question. Okay, I see already somebody's raising hand. I will give the word in a moment. Let me finish with this question here. Okay. Well, I think we all agree that spirituality is basic for establishing humanism. But I kind of pushed these questions. Now let's have a little bit of discussion if possible. Okay, I will unmute. I see you with the hands up, Alex. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. Is, you were talking at the end about, the job and even like some companies. Is it possible, or how is it possible, to say operate a business or be in a profession, and still maintain that neo-humanist kind of like perspective, considering the essence of many businesses, if not all, is this competition, trying to exceed in the market or do anything. Even as a professor, though, I deal with conflict all the time, and I'm trying to help students get positions and jobs and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about both from a business perspective and a profession perspective?
Yes, okay. So what happens is that, as I mentioned, we are living in a certain environment, and that environment is set up in a certain way. And if we are the only one, it's very difficult. If we are how can we operate completely different from everybody? So now we can, if we are new humanist, if we have spiritual ideas, now we have to build up a, let's say, connections. We have to build up connections, and then we can start putting our ideas into practice. I just came to my mind now this example. When my teacher, or Prabhataranjan Sarkar, which is the author of this book on new humanism, when he started teaching spirituality. So he started teaching spirituality to some people. And those days, he was telling the people who learn that they cannot tell anybody else that they learned from him, and nobody should know. After teaching a number of people, at one occasion, he called all of them together, and now they all came to know each other. Oh, you are also practicing. Oh, you also. After that, he created an organization. So he had to do a certain groundwork to be able to express at that time the idea of spirituality. Okay? So in the same way, we may be in a certain environment. Maybe we are living in an environment where there is a lot of capitalism, competition, how to get a job, how to survive. Companies are competing with each other. In this environment, we cannot just immediately come up and say, okay, I'm a new humanist, or I'm proud, and this is how I'm going to work. Maybe we'll lose our job, our company will close and finish. So we have to do in a way that we have to create connections. We have to create a certain environment where it becomes possible to come with our ideas. So now in the economic, there is proud. But before people can accept proud, in their psychic level, they have to kind of liberate their mind from certain limited ideas. And then they can think, yes, we do need to change a little bit our economic thing. Even if there is a certain group, there are businesses nowadays that are running with a different perspective. So if that can be strengthened, so then change can come. And like I was thinking in Romania, oh, this will never change. And then it just changed. It seemed so strong, but it was not really that strong. In the economy today, it seems so strong that it's supposed to be in that way. But is it really that strong? That's the question. So I cannot tell here that, oh, from tomorrow you start working in this way, because maybe you will not survive in the environment, but you can start creating connections and start changing minds. That work can happen, and then it will be easier to create a change. Okay, we are still open for questions, and you can raise hand or you can type your questions. And that this is a very relevant question Alex has raised, because a philosophy or an idea has only value if it can be applied in practice, if it can be implemented. If it cannot be implemented, then the idea doesn't have value. No. So okay, we are hearing about new humanism, we think it's important, but now we have to think how to implement it, how we can really make it happen in the environment that we live. And it cannot be done by an individual. So there must be individuals who are thinking that way, connected, and then the idea gets strength and can come and become practical. Okay, I think Alex wants a follow-up on the question. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick follow-up. Yeah. One of the things that I do here at the university, I work with the students in their clubs. And as you know, the project that we're doing in the progressive school, I'm pretty much asked by students, kind of to volunteer. And I'm really focused a lot on service,
Right.
that there is a benefit to them. And I kind of explain it to them in that. And I know they get additional benefit, like they feel really good about it, and they do like helping out. Is that enough, or does there need to be more of a discussion about the spirituality behind the service, or do we just say let the service kind of guide them by itself to get to that spiritual point? Hopefully I made that clear.
Yeah, I see. Spirituality is needed, but cannot be imposed. It has to come out of inspiration and inner search. Service is good if the service is completely devoid of any spirituality. It can also make people a little bit kind of looking for some recognition, and then that will not help them so much. But the thing of spirituality is that the way the society is, not many people are searching for it, but the problem is that it's not offered so much. I have experiences. For example, I relate one fact that happened in Italy many years ago. I was invited to talk in a high school, and that was like the day that all the classes come together into the big auditorium. They invite a speaker. So I was the speaker that day. When I arrived, I saw that there was completely chaos in the auditorium. People were throwing papers, talking, and the principal was on the microphone trying to control the people. Please keep quiet, this, that. Then I arrived, and then he introduced me, and then I started speaking about meditation, spirituality. I was following the idea like what human beings are really looking for. We are looking for happiness or peace, how much. So I was following this kind of idea. And then I introduced the idea of meditation, and that covered also, I think we did a little bit meditation, and that covered the whole class. And during that presentation, the principal, he was coming in, then he goes out, then he comes in, then he goes out. By the end of the presentation, he came to me and said, "It was very good." And I said, "But you didn't really attend it because I saw that you were leaving and coming." He said, "Yeah, but all the students were listening." And I was surprised, but then I understood that most of the presentations they have, the students are not interested. But the presentation on meditation like this, they were very interested. So it was completely silent the whole time. But after that, they never invited me again. So what I thought that we don't expose the people to the real idea of spirituality. People may be exposed to religion and other ideas, but they don't get so much exposed to the idea of spirituality, pure spirituality, experimental spirituality. Maybe that is needed, in the present society. But for example, in my case, the way I'm dressed and everything, people immediately put a religious idea in front. They immediately think, oh, this is a certain religion, and they have already a kind of idea, these religions are a problem, they are like this, like. So spirituality is not very much offered. And I think if we offer the idea of spirituality to the people, expose them to the idea of spirituality, it will help a lot. And that will create a real change in the mind of people. Okay, I have two comments. It's about spiritual essence in the context of revolt in Romania is not clear to me. Yeah, that was not really based on the spiritual essence, but that give us an idea how it can work. The idea is that if the moment many people change their mind, then things in the external world change. So what is spirituality in essence? It starts we practicing spirituality. Now, many people practicing spirituality, it comes a certain point that the change of the mind of those people affect the collective mind. So the collective mind cannot accept certain limited ideas anymore, and that creates change. So that's the idea of spirituality in essence, in my understanding. Now the thing is, these ideas of Prabhupada and Jan Sarkar are novel ideas and very expanded ideas. Now we are trying to catch them, to understand them, and to translate them into something that we understand. So my understanding of spirituality in essence is that it's a change in the collective mind, and how that change comes after spirituality as a cult, as a practice that affects the collective mind. Now, when the collective mind changes, then it changes in the external world. Okay, I think we reached the end of this class. I'm going to prepare the video and I'm going to send you the link, and I'm going to add some homework also, and I hope you will get also a good response from the homework like this. So the idea of the homework is this, that to find out this metamorphosed strategy that people use to keep them in their position. And we can even analyze history, how different people have dominated the power and have kept the power by changing the sentiment they use. I will type something and send to you. Okay, thank you and good night. Namaskar.